Welcome everyone to today's webinar, 7 Things Websites of the Future Will Have. My name is Matt Baer. I'm the founder of Q4Launch. I'm excited you guys are along for the ride with us on this journey into the future. I'll tell you, as I was preparing for today's content, I love this type of webinar because honestly, I just kind of get to dream a little bit. A lot of our webinars we do, we're teaching specific things, teaching specific actions, or talking about some data or experiences we're having or things we're seeing in the marketplace. And this time around, we get to dream a little bit and be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. So, so there's some cool content I'm excited to talk to you guys about today, and honored, honestly, that y'all came along to hear what we think the future looks like. I was talking to somebody just over lunch a few minutes ago about just how cool it is to be in a place where I get to kind of sit around and dream about what the future might look like, and there's a group of people that actually care to hear what we have to say about it. And in that, we had a really high registration for today's webinar. So excited to have so many of you tuned in what is a very busy season for many of you. So I know it's a very relevant topic for lots of us as we look at the content we're going to talk about today. If this is your first time with us, I know we do have some first-time attendees on today's webinar as well. Welcome. We're glad you're here. A little bit about us and me and why we do these webinars. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, founded the company about 9 years ago. For about the last 3.5 years, we've been focused exclusively in the travel space, working on the lodging side of the hospitality industry. And we do this webinar series as a bi-monthly webinar series, do 2 a month, to share what we're learning about working with our customers. Our customers range from Maui to Singapore and just about everywhere in between. And we do these webinars to share what we're learning, the insights we have, the data we have, and teach the industry about some of the things we're learning. We believe if all of us do a better job of marketing ourselves, that it helps our sector of the industry grow. And that's what we want. We want to see growth for everybody. We want to see all of you growing in your businesses because we believe it creates a better future for the next generation. So we're excited about that. And it ties back to our core values, one of which is to share knowledge and share a lot of what we're doing along the way. And one of our other core values is to create fun. So we're going to try to do that with y'all today as well as we have some fun on today's topic. At the end of our time together today, we will have some time for Q&A. So make sure to tune in for that. Drop your questions in the chat panel as we go throughout our time together. Just because of the nature of this webinar, I don't know that I'll have answers for all your questions, but I look forward to talking about them nonetheless. And we'll have some next step opportunities for you. If this is knowing how many people signed up for today's webinar, I know there's a lot of people with a lot of questions and trying to figure these things out. So we'll have some next steps available for you there as well. So without further ado, let's dive into our 7 things websites of the future will have. Honestly, as I was putting the content together, I kind of started drifting into what I think the internet will look like in the future. So some of what we're going to talk about is very on point for that 7 things your website might have in the future or things we think it should have in the future. Some of it, and then kind of the latter part of our conversation, maybe the last 2 or 3 things are going to be things that we think will be impacting the internet as a whole. So maybe past or beyond just the website piece, but really looking at the internet as a whole, because as we understand those things, it will impact other decisions we're making from a website-specific perspective. So lots to think about, lots of different content that we're going to touch base on together today. So here we go. Number 1. If I don't zoom out and show you the entire presentation all at once there, here we go. Number 1, personalization through software integration. Integration is going to be a big trend through our conversation today. I think we're looking at a web of the future that is much more integrated than our web of today is. But we want to talk a little bit about that. I think personalization is going to be a big part of websites of the future. I think that your website will be built on a CRM or a customer relationship management tool. And we're seeing this now, like this has been happening for years, especially at the enterprise level. But as many things do, they start at the enterprise level and they trickle down as they get more and more affordable for everybody else in the world. So if you're not a Fortune 500 company, it takes some time for these things to trickle down and be affordable, but they will be affordable in the coming years. And I think your website will know its visitor. I think in a lot of cases, you will know who's on your site and what they're doing, what they're looking at, what their past behavior has been. And if you can layer that on top of booking engine integration, you can see information specific to that person. So if you know who your visitor is, you know who your guest is, you're able to serve content that's customized for that person. And I think that's one of the big things we're going to see in websites in the future is this content customization, or personalization is another way of saying that, by the individual, at the individual guest level. So a website will have a general look and feel, hence the brand piece of it, but the content will be customized for specific guests. And things will move themselves around due to some of the modularization that's happening in the web right now. And content will move itself around automatically to serve up information that is unique to that guest. And through that, and through the guest data, we'll open up a ton of new opportunities we can't even fully wrap our head around right now. We'll open up new marketing opportunities. We'll open up new life cycle opportunities because we'll have a better understanding of the guest life cycle. We'll see our conversion rates increase because the website and the content that makes the website up will have greater personalization, which equates to greater relevancy for the visitor. Greater relevancy will drive conversion higher. So there's a lot of things that this type of opportunity will create for websites in the future. But it's going to take a little bit of time to continue to trickle down. We're already starting to do some of this with our customers, and we're going to see more and more of it as it gets more and more affordable. I have friends in the industry, not in the hospitality industry, but in the marketing industry, that have been building sites like this for 2, 3, 4 years. It's just their 6, 7-figure websites. Now, I know a lot of us on the webinar today can't afford a 6-figure website. And that's what I'm talking about, affordability. Like, we're going to see these things starting to get more and more affordable, and it's going to lend itself to some continuous improvement that we're going to talk about later on today's webinar. So personalization through integration will open up a tremendous opportunity in the future to better understand your guests, better market to them, and better convert them into bookings, which at the end of the day is why we're all here, right? I mean, we're here because we want to learn how to drive more bookings, and we think that'll be a big way as far as how we do that. The other piece of that is the understanding your guest life cycle will be huge as a part of knowing how to better market to them. I mean, wouldn't you love to know if a guest who has stayed with you in the past is coming back to your website? If they're back on your website, that's a strong indicator that they're dreaming or planning about a trip to come stay with you in the future. And if you could figure out who of those people, what of our past guests were on our website today, that's really valuable information, because that's a life cycle opportunity that you would create a marketing campaign or a life cycle campaign around those specific people. Past guests that are visiting the website, it's kind of for next year, or looking at making their next booking. Right now, we hope they book again. We send them email campaigns. We do all these things. But if we knew in the moment that they were on our website, we could market to them much more personally and have a much more custom, on-target, relevant message, which would drive not only conversion rate higher on your website, but would drive traffic higher and would drive bookings higher, no doubt, because we'd be able to influence their decision while they're in the place of considering their decision. So many opportunities that this will open up. I believe this will transform the way we do marketing and we do website design in the future. This one thing I think I'll probably be teaching in a complete webinar on probably within the not too distant future, because of how big of an opportunity lies within this as we're able to figure it out through an integration perspective. Number 2, a focus on content, not just photography. So as we talk to people and we launch typically between 6 and 10 websites a month. So when I say that, we've got a lot of experience onboarding and launching websites. 6 to 10 a month, it's not a small number, at least not for us. Maybe it is if for you or you're thinking about it, but it's a lot. We're launching a lot of sites. And one of the things we run into is, and it's important, but is a conversation quite a bit around photography. And oftentimes we hear our customer experience managers here, I don't want to launch my new website until I have my new photography done. And I get that. And I understand where they're coming from. But very rarely, if ever, have we heard, I don't want to launch my new website until I write new copy for it. And I think that in the last 5 years, as a web design industry, we have put such a huge emphasis on photography. And we've done it too. Like, we're right in the crowd that's made a big deal out of photography. And I'm not saying that I think photography will go away, or that its importance will diminish, or that you should reduce your budget with photography. But what I am saying is that I think we need to create a more balanced approach and balanced investment into all of our content. And if you followed our webinar series, you know we're very data-driven, and I don't have all the data to give you today on this. This isn't a super data-driven webinar. It's more of a futurist webinar, but we have a lot of data that backs up content drives conversion. And that's not a assumption. That's not a thing that's going to happen in the future. That's a thing that's happening right now. But as we look to the future, people have to adapt and say, it's not just about my photography. It's about my content. And what does my overall content look like, feel like, read like? Is it on brand? Is it on point? Does it make people get closer to converting? And when you do that well, you drive conversion rate. And as we've been testing this with customers and implementing this with customers, we're seeing conversion rates between 50% and 100% improvements. So it's not a small change. I'm not talking about taking a conversion rate and increasing it by 10%. I'm talking about taking a conversion rate and increasing it by 50 to 100% just by changing the way we are doing our content on the primary pages people visit. So we prioritize that based off the pages getting the most traffic and using that to create conversion. One of the things our competitors like to say is that we create content for content's sake. And that's funny to me. Honestly, I think that comes from a place of not being able to create content that converts, and that's an attack on we can't create great content, so we're going to accuse someone else of doing it just for content's sake. When in reality, we create content that increases traffic and converts traffic into leads and bookings, because that's the point. You can increase traffic, but if you're not increasing leads and bookings, there's no point. And we have figured out how to use that content, use that visitor, understand where they are in that funnel to be able to guide people down that funnel towards conversion and towards making a booking with our customer. And that's a process you go through. That is not okay, I'm going to do it and I'm going to be done. It's not like photography, where you bring a photographer out, they do a 2-day shoot or whatever, and then you get it and you're done. It's a process of continuous improvement. And we're working that more into our content strategy with our customers, and balancing our content out. You know, it used to be that we thought about content creation much like you do, and that it was really relegated to the blog, and that's where that lived. And in the last year, we've really changed the way we think about that. And we're working overall site-wide content creation more and more into our content strategy, and not isolating it to a blog. We used to accept a lot of the content our customers would give us, put it up and launch it. Now with customers, we're massaging that a lot more and in a process of continuous improvement on that content. And that's the same thing. And I'm talking a lot about what we do with our customers, but the takeaway you need to have from that is, what do you need to be doing? Like, how do you need to be thinking about these things? What investments do you need to be making? If you don't love to write content, and I know most of us don't love to write content, you need to be thinking about, who can I engage in this process? Who can help me with this? So not just knows how to write, but knows how to write to get conversion, because those are very different things. You can be a great writer and have no idea how to write for a conversion. You can love to write and have no idea how to write for a conversion. And I would say a place to figure that out and where you are, if you do love to write or you think you're a great writer, is to look at your content and look, how is it converting? Look at your blogs. How are they converting? And it doesn't mean that the content's not great. It just means it may not have been written with conversion in mind. But there's a tremendous opportunity that lies here, because no one is really doing this well. Like, very, very few people, less than 1% of people, I would say, are doing this well. So it's a huge opportunity to differentiate yourself and your marketplace, because chances are your competitors are not going to make this investment. This is not an easy investment. This isn't one of those things you go off and check off your list tomorrow. It's a continuous improvement process. It's something you're constantly investing into to get it better, 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 more on brand and more converting. So big opportunity, but it will come at a high cost from a time perspective. It can be very time consuming to do this and do this well, but huge opportunity for those of us that embrace that in the future, and significant improvements from a revenue perspective as we look at conversion rate. And when I say conversion rate, if you're not familiar with that, we're going to talk about conversion rate a lot today. So let me set that term up. We're really looking at the percentage of people that come to your website and convert on a specific action. Oftentimes, conversion rate would be referred to in the sense of people that actually make a booking on your website. That is a conversion, but there are other conversion opportunities as well on good sites that have multiple conversion opportunities. Now, I know a lot of people only have the one, the book now conversion opportunity, so that might be your only one. But you need to be thinking about that as well. How do we drive conversion beyond book now? Because that's a big part of having success in marketing. So I wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page with what conversion rate means, if that's a new term for you. All right, moving ahead here to number 3, more artificial intelligence and instant access to custom information. So let me unpack that a little bit, because I know it's a lot, right? One, the artificial intelligence piece of that. Everybody's talking about AI and machine learning like it's the buzzword in the internet right now. When I'm talking about instant access, we know guests are looking for instant information. We've talked about in webinars before the dramatically higher conversion rate you will see on an inquiry if you reply to that inquiry within 4 hours. And the data backs that up, not just within 4 hours, but the faster you reply to that inquiry, the more likely it is to convert. So the faster you reply to a prospective guest who's asking a question or making an inquiry about staying at your property, the faster or the higher the conversion rate will be on that inquiry. The challenge is we're sucked in so many different directions that it's hard to respond promptly to those things. And that's where we think AI and chatbots are going to come in. Artificial intelligence and chatbots are going to be required to keep up. There's been a lot of conversation in the web about chatbots in the last year, and a lot more implementation around chatbots than we've ever seen before. And I think that will continue to grow. I think it's hard to put years on it, but I'd say within 3 to 5 years, chatbots will be pretty mainstream. And this is something that we're looking at as an opportunity to help our customers in saying, what are the questions we get time and time again, and can we build the logic to create a chatbot to do that for us? Can we automate that so that we don't have to do that manually and reply to those inquiries, respond to all those questions? Can we use technology to do that for us, which will free us up as operators to go spend time doing the things that create value for our guests? And that's where we need to be thinking, like, where can I spend my time that creates the most value for my customer or for my guest? We also think chat technology is going to be more widely used to get instant answers. We see websites with chat technology on it have a higher conversion rate than those that don't. Like, there's a lot of data to back that up. I know my behavior. If there is a chat site or a chat functionality, whether that's automated through a chat bot or if it's manual through a chat process, there are lots of times that if I'm on a website and I can get my question answered automatically, or not automatic, that's probably not the right word, but instantly, I am more likely to complete that purchase at that moment. If I can't, I'm less likely to get that purchase made. Case in point, we're buying some new technology for some of our team. It's going to be a pretty big spend for us to secure this technology. And I was on a site from a vendor who had that, who has that technology about 3 weeks ago. Their chat was offline, so I left a message, and I haven't heard a response back from that message, and it's 3 weeks later. Had they answered my question at that moment, I would have made that purchase at that moment. I was ready. I was focused. I was ready to go. I'd allocated the time. Fast forward 3 weeks, I still haven't made that purchase because my question hasn't been answered and I've been busy. So it's a difficult thing, but it's a huge opportunity for those of us that embrace it to say, we know our guests have questions that aren't being answered. The average website in the industry converts at about 0.4 to 0.5%. So less than 1% of traffic converts to a booking when you look at e-commerce on a daily basis in the industry as a whole, which means 99.5% of people aren't making a booking. So 99.5% of people are coming to your website and leaving without making a booking. So if you think about why they're not booking, there is a huge percentage of people, there's a huge part of your business you can recapture by solving the problem that kept them from booking, by answering the question that kept them from booking, by figuring out where you lost them in that process. And chat technology can help you do that. Chat technology is nothing new. It's been around for years. The chatbot piece of it is new. We also think that AI will replace a lot of things done manually right now. Chat is just one of them. Answering questions and responding to inquiries is just one of them. but AI will replace a lot of things that are being done manually right now. And the people that embrace that and figure that out, and we think that's true across everything. I think that's true across your website. I think that's true across a lot of the things you do to manage your business. And I think it's true across a lot of the world. We can't fully understand what all AI and machine learning will replace right now, but they've been saying it for years, right? We're being replaced by robots. But that's a little bit about what we're talking about here, as we are being replaced by robots to a certain extent. But what do you do at that time? If the robot frees up your time, where can you go invest that time that it's more valuable for you and creates value for your guests? And as we talk about that, we've got to talk about the pace of change. And I would say buckle up in a big way, because the pace of change is accelerating exponentially. And this is a quote from, and I'm going to butcher his last name, but Raymond Kurzweil, or somebody, if anybody knows him, apologize for butchering his last name. But an analysis of the history of technology shows that technological change is exponential, contrary to the common sense, intuitive, linear view. So we won't experience 100 years of progress in the 21st century. It will be more like 20,000 years of progress at today's rate. The returns, such as chip speed and cost effectiveness, also increase exponentially. There's even exponential growth in the rate of exponential growth. So basically what that means, if you just kind of geeked out with me a little bit and maybe it went over your head, I don't know, but basically what that means is the faster we accelerate, the faster we will accelerate. The faster things change, the faster things will change in the future. And as computer processing and chip speed and everything gets more and more cost effective, everything will accelerate faster and faster and faster. Your cell phone that you hold in the palm of your hand has more computing power than an entire room did 20, 30 years ago. The first computers had a fraction of the computing power, and they cost millions of dollars and took up entire rooms, and you can hold that in the palm of your hand. You can hold that on the fingertip in the chip, from a chip perspective. And that's what we're talking about with chip speed and cost effectiveness. For a couple $100, you can buy a phone that has more computing power than the best computers in the world did 20 years ago that cost millions of dollars. So the pace of change is accelerating exponentially, and it's only going to get faster. And that's something, as we talk about the future, we have to connect with. We have to get serious and understand the pace of change, the fact that it's accelerating faster than ever, and that it will continue to accelerate at a greater and greater speed. And how does that need to impact the decisions we're making about our business today? And that's a really important question. I know I talk really fast, but that is a really, really important question. If you believe this is true, if you believe that the pace of change is accelerating exponentially, you need to be making decisions about your business and your technology differently today than you did last year, last month, 3 years ago, because you need to be making decisions, including the information you have about the pace of change. Because if you don't, the decision you make will be out of date so fast, you can't even begin to understand it. And you will be in a constant place of trying to catch up. And I think that's why there were so many people registered for today's webinar, because this pace of change conversation is happening all over the place. Every conference I've been to in 2017, pace of change has been one of the major topics talked about. And I think everyone's waking up to the fact that it is accelerating faster than ever, and it will continue to accelerate faster, faster, faster. So we know we need to make decisions differently than we ever have before. And honestly, that's a big topic around our office, that pace of change. And the things that we're building differently than we've ever built them before, because we're thinking about this in everything that we build. We're thinking about how different things will be a year from now than they are today. And we're talking to our teams about that as they're working on product development and they're working on things for their customers to say, think about the pace of change. Think about where this will be a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and think about how your customer will benefit from it then, and what can we be doing now to set ourselves up for that in the future. The other part of that is scalability, right? I mean, how can we make this so that it scales so that customers can access it in an affordable way? And that speed and cost effectiveness is a really important part of that scalability conversation. So lots of information to add there, lots of things to think about. And one of those ways that we're thinking about that is our number 4 on our list. And that's creating your website as a future-proof platform. So if you think about this for a minute, your website that you've launched, maybe you launched it today, and this is an exciting day for you because you're excited to have that done. Or maybe you launched it a year ago or 3 years ago, heaven forbid, or 5 or more. But the website that you have, even if you launch it today, is out of date. Your website was out of date the day you launched it. Because of the pace of change, your website is out of date the day you launched it. Typically, if we look at the industry as a whole, it takes about 90 days for most people to build and launch a website. It's kind of an industry average, if you will. So the fact that that's the case, you probably spent 90 days planning that. Then you spent 90 days developing and launching it. So you're 6 months into a project. So the product you launched was launched with information you had 6 months ago. But because of the pace of change, the code it's built on, the thought process you had, everything you did about that whole thing is out of date the day it launched. It's at minimum, most likely 6 months to 3 months old. Most likely, it's quite a bit older than that. So you've got to be thinking about that. And that's something that we've been thinking a lot about for the last couple of years. And we've launched our website platform in a way that we're calling it our future-proof platform because we've built it differently than things have been built before. Because without a future-proof platform, we can't keep up with the pace of change. And as you're making those decisions in your business, whether it's your website or it's other parts of your business, you've got to be thinking about future-proofing things. Because if you don't, it will fall behind and it won't set you up to succeed in the long run. And what I mean by that is this concept that a website is never done. Your website should be going through a process of continuous improvement. And as it goes through that, your website is getting updated, made better, refreshed on a constant basis. So Google's driving a lot of this in the way they're doing their business. They used to have algorithm updates they would do to their search engine, and they'd be these big events, and they'd get names like Penguin and Pigeon and Panda and all these big names. Now they're in this place of constant, continuous improvement on their algorithm. So they're pushing small updates on a daily basis. And we see the same thing happening in software, where it used to be that we would be doing these major feature releases, and we do them in these waves, every year, year and a half, whatever the norm used to be in software, where things are happening now, they're happening in a much more agile way, where we're making updates on a constant basis. We're making small sprints instead of running marathons. And those sprints enable us to do continuous improvement and get things done much, much faster. And that's the way we've built our website platform, because it enables us to push updates to our customers much, much faster. It enables continuous improvement. It means design doesn't stagnate in the past. So if you launch a design, typically it's been the assumption that a website has about a 3-year lifespan. In reality, because of the pace of change, I think it's less than 3 years now, but that's still kind of the norm most people are living off of. But design doesn't stagnate in the past when you build it on a platform that enables you to tweak and change design quickly and effectively in the future. We also think this is the end of website launches, right? So most of us have been through a website design or redesign at some point in our careers as marketers, and you probably have relatively painful memories from it. One of the things we sought to do with our future-proof platform, and one of the things that we think is happening in the industry. So I'm telling you a little about what we're doing, but it's the future we see the industry going is the takeaway from that. But the point of building and launching a website, we think will go away. We think that it will be more of a process of continuous improvement and less of a process of running a marathon. So probably a lot of you feel like launching your website was running a marathon, and probably if you've ever run a marathon, and I have, and I'm not in a hurry to do it again, although I'm kind of doing it later this month, but that's a different story for another day that's going to be equally painful. It's kind of like that, and it gets really painful, especially those last 6 miles. We think that process is the old school way of thinking about website design. It's the old way of doing things, where you're launching stuff that's out of date the day you launch it, which is a bad place to be. So instead, think about the future and think about how to build something that will be future-proof and that you can continue to improve on a constant basis. And that's what we've built, that's what we're working towards, and that's what I would encourage you to be thinking about. A little bit about how we've done that. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but we've invested heavily in this future because we believe it is going to be a big part of the future. So we built a cloud-based, future-proof website platform where it's more like a piece of software and it's less like a project. I mean, think about if you had a car you never had to do maintenance to again, or you never had to take to the dealer again, you never had to buy a new car, because every day your car had a small change made to it that kept it ahead and kept it up with current times. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Never having to go back to the mechanic again to get your oil changed. Never having to go back to the mechanic to get a new CD player put in or a MP3 connection put in or whatever. Like, as you think about the pace of change in technology just from the music side of things, that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, I know it's hard to pull an analogy into this, but thinking about it more as a platform and software and less like a project that has a beginning and an end and a launch. Since we launched that platform, we've done over 80 updates and pushed those out to our customers. So that's not things our customers have come back and asked us to do. Those are things that we've said, hey, we think this would work better if it was like this. And we're able to update that and push that out to all of our customers all at once, which makes it very, very fast and efficient and keeps our customers' websites at the forefront of technology and helps them stay ahead of the curve. A big part of that, I talked about design not stagnating. Our platform is built in a way that we can deliver a new every 3 guarantee. So because of the pace of change in design and everything that is that, you need to launch a new website every 3 years, but who wants to go through that? So we've built our platform in a way that enables us to give our customers a brand new design every 3 years for no cost. So they get a brand new website design every 3 years at no cost because we're thinking about pace of change and we're thinking about how to build a platform for the future. And you've got to be asking yourself those questions and thinking about that in your website as well. And we've got over 100 customers on that platform already. So I'm not talking about something we're doing with a couple of people. I'm talking about something we're doing at scale. And we think there's a lot more coming from that because we think this is where the future of the industry is going. And if you look beyond just hospitality, everything points to this is what the future of the industry is. And we have to wake up as an industry and say, this is what the future looks like. How are we going to embrace that? And in doing so, you're going to position yourself in a much better place to stay ahead of your competition, who may take longer to keep up with the pace of change. And you're going to make your life a lot easier and a lot less expensive from a managing your website asset perspective. So tons of opportunity that exists within this. All right, so let's keep moving and talk about number 5. And this is where we're going to pivot a little bit. These last 3, we're going to talk about some things we think are going to happen on the internet as a whole. And this gets into a little bit of the conspiracy theory territory. So we're going to go with it. We're going to have some fun. I believe that we will see an integrated web with data like whoa. So go with me on that. I don't mean, earlier we talked about personalization and the role that that's playing. That's coming sooner than this. But I think in the future, based on some things we are seeing, I think there's early indicators coming out from companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, that say this is where things are heading. And I don't know exactly how it's going to come together, right? I mean, when we predict the future, it's very rarely actually comes to fruition like we thought it would, because there's a lot of things we don't know. But if you plot the strategy moves that these big 3 companies are making, and you start drawing a line and continue that line out and say, well, where do we think that's headed? If this is where the line is pointing, what do we think lives out there? Like, where are things heading? And as I do that and I evaluate strategy from these companies so that I can then take that strategy and say, okay, how do we need to help our customers respond if that's where strategy is being driven by these big 3 tech companies? As we do that, I think we're going to see more of an integrated web in the future. Now, if you think about the way the web exists today, we all live in silos, right? Your website is a silo of information that for the most part is walled off. And we as web developers work pretty hard to make sure it's walled off from a security perspective. I had a conversation about that this morning and just continuing to push the envelope forward from a security perspective. And that's not what I'm talking about, like to breaking security barriers down. What I'm talking about is how will websites interact with each other? How will websites interact with the Internet of Things, right? How will the web interact with your home, which we're already seeing that happening. There's some really cool stories out there about the way marketers are using that, which I can't get into today. But how will this change? How will the web be integrated? As part of that, I think there will be a continued reduction in privacy. And I think privacy will be the currency of the future. Now, I don't mean we will trade privacy like we trade currency, but I think privacy will separate classes in the future. And that privacy will only be something afforded by the mega rich, which is weird. I'm not going to get into the whole moral issue of that, but it's a part of what we're talking about. I believe that big data is just beginning. Like, we've been gathering data years and years and years, and big data has been around for a long time as a term, but I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what's going to come from big data. I think Google, Facebook, and Amazon have enough data to predict your future. I think with machine learning and AI and predictive analytics, that with what Google, Facebook, and Amazon know about you, they can predict your future. I would bet you they can predict the chance that you're going to get cancer. I will bet they can predict the chance that you're going to have kids. I will bet they can predict the chance about the products that you're going to buy, the places that you're going to go, the houses that you're going to buy, the money that you're going to earn. They know so much about you, and they have so much data about everyone in the world that they can use that data, analyze it to make predictions about you, which I think will ultimately, through the machine learning piece of that and through tracking your behavior and comparing it to behavior about people that look like you, of course, from a data perspective, they will be able to predict your purchase behavior, which will dramatically change the way you interact and purchase things, and will dramatically change the way we interact and advertise products if we can predict consumer purchase behavior down to an individual level. And I think that will happen. That's a little bit of the big brother creepy part of it, but I also think this data can come together to improve customer experience across the web, which I don't know how that all is going to play out. I don't know what that's looking like. I don't have action steps to give you on that today, but I do think that there's a tremendous opportunity if we can gather that data to think about customer experience across the web and think about relevancy and personalization to make that better. It's kind of like I think it was Minority Report was the movie where Tom Cruise is walking through and they're scanning his eye to figure out who he is, and then they're serving up ads based on his specific behavior. That's been predicted, so it's not like I'm the new guy on the block saying that, but they're figuring out how to do that. They're figuring out how to integrate data together, integrate the web together to be able to do that and predict what you need to see, the ads you need to see, and make things more relevant to you, which can improve your customer experience. It can also be really creepy and scary. So we will kind of take that one and move on, but there's a lot going on around that. And I think an opportunity to think about that in the future and how our websites can integrate with each other is a mind-boggling thing, but has a lot of potential opportunity. Number 6, some things we're seeing from Amazon make me believe that we will have a one checkout process that's integrated across the web. I think Amazon is trying to position themselves as the checkout process. Like, if you look at the way they're positioning their business, I think there could be a play that all transactions that happen online flow through Amazon. Now, there's antitrust, there's anti-monopoly, there's all these things that you could argue would prevent that. But I think there's a strong likelihood that Amazon will make a play to have one checkout process with all transactions running through them. If you look at Amazon Web Services, it started as a side project of Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, I believe it just came out this week, is now the richest man in the world. But that was a side project that is now a $13 billion company and is growing at something like 50% year over year. Companies don't grow at 50% year over year when they're $13 billion. But as Amazon is becoming, they're the fastest growing web services provider from a hosting perspective, at least that I'm aware of. And if they're growing at that pace, they're sucking up market share. The web as a whole is growing, so that's part of the growth, but they're also sucking up market share that's a part of that growth. And if they can get enough market share where they basically host the internet and host everything that's on it, or the majority of things that's on it, they can control a ton of things that happen on the web. I think there could be a future where everything on the web becomes buyable, where because Amazon is hosting it and because of some of the photo search technology exists and everything else, there could be a time in our future where you could see a photo of a widget, of a room, of a property, of a destination, and you could click on the image of that, and it could instantly take you to Amazon's marketplace where you could buy that product, whatever it is, whether it's a room or it's a widget or it's whatever, because they can, if they're hosting that content, there's a way they can map all that back. Now, it creates a lot of other things, and there's a lot to figure out there. But there's an interesting future that might look like Amazon handles all checkout, all e-commerce, everywhere, everything runs through them. All credit cards would be processed by them, meaning that your credit card number wouldn't be flying around anymore. Your credit card number wouldn't be something you gave to anyone but Amazon. Amazon would be the merchant, basically, and then you would run everything through Amazon's checkout process. We've already kind of seen this with companies like PayPal and Square, and well, Square not quite so much, but where they are it's a way to, MasterPass is a kind of example where they are controlling the credit card information and the flow of information, which does enhance security. It can also make a huge improvement on guest experience. Amazon has mastered the checkout process. They spend millions and millions of dollars studying conversion and how to optimize everything they do around conversion. And if you look at their site and how dramatically different it is than most hospitality sites, it's actually really interesting, because if we're going to optimize for conversion, and that's the most important metric, there's a lot of things we probably need to be doing differently based on Amazon's example. Another topic for another day, but that guest experience could be dramatically improved if Amazon has their hand in the overall checkout process. It's also really scary if they have their hands in the overall checkout process, but it's a tremendous opportunity. So something to definitely be thinking about, and what would that look like? What would that future look like from a web perspective? Really, really interesting. And number 7, and this came from a team conversation as I was preparing for today, and just thinking about some cool ideas, because we have so much content to put into this, but fingerprint checkout, right? So this is kind of a crazy idea, but a lot of things have moved to the thumbprint on your phone, and you can do so much with your thumbprint because it is 100% unique to you. And Amazon has mastered and patented actually that one-click shopping experience. But what does that look like to the next level? What if you could just buy a product with your thumbprint? What if you were browsing the web, you were on Amazon or on another e-commerce site, you're checking it out, you're clicking on things like you usually do, but instead of having a buy now button, whenever you were ready to make that purchase, you would just hold your thumbprint on your totally forgot what that button's called. I think it used to be called the home button. I don't even know what they call it now, but basically the only button your phone has now, the only actual button your phone has. What if you just held your thumb there and that was your buy now button? How would that change conversion? How would that change the way we interact with the web? Or bringing that technology into other things. Like if we could do other things, and it's not just the fingerprint. I think we're going to see a lot more, and Samsung is playing with this. They've kind of rolled it out already, but it hasn't really taken on. And that's other gestures that you can make to do things. Things like blinking your eyes, things like scrolling with your eyes, all those types of things that they are doing to drive things. I mean, think if your webcam was always on and you were browsing the web, be it on your laptop, your phone, whatever, and instead of clicking on something, you looked at it and you blinked. And when you looked at that link or that photo and you blinked, it was the same as clicking on it. Like those are the things that people are working on. Those are the things that are out there. This isn't stuff like you're going to take and implement this today, but what would the web look like if that was the case? And how fast could you navigate through the web or do the work you do on your computer if you didn't have a mouse? You just looked at it, blinked, and it went to that next thing. Or you said it and it went to the next thing. It would totally transform the way you interact with your machine. So whether that's a phone, a tablet, or a desktop, or a laptop, totally change the way you interact. Now, the next level of that is the mind piece, like you think it and it happens. I think we'll get to the fingerprint, the eye tracking, some of those things faster because we're already there in some ways. It's just figuring out how to implement that technology and getting customers comfortable with that technology, which is the next big hurdle. So that's a little bit about it. Those are our 7 things we think websites of the future will have, or we think the internet will look like in the future, which probably has created more questions than answers. Your mind's probably swimming a little bit, at least mine was, pulling all this together. But there's a few key takeaways that I want you to think about. We talked about a lot of big picture things, but some things that you really need to be taking away and things you can start the process of implementing. You probably can't start the process of implementing thumbprint checkout today or eye tracking today, but some things you can start implementing. You need to be working on your website copy more. You really need to be thinking about that. You need to be thinking about your overall content, not just your photos, and investing time, money, resources into website copy. And you will see an ROI. That is not a dead-end investment. We have data that proves there is ROI from that investment. You need to focus more on conversion rate optimization. It kind of ties into that first one. But I think a lot of us spend a lot of time talking about marketing and how to drive traffic. Not a lot of people spend time talking about how to get more value out of the traffic that we have. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity to do that. Conversion rate optimization isn't anything new. It can be expensive to do at times, although like everything else, it's getting less expensive to do it. And we're spending more and more time in conversion rate optimization for our customers. And you need to be doing the same thing. Instead of just saying, like, I want a beautiful website, you need to be having conversations about a website that is a highly converting website and that accomplishes a specific goal or multiple specific goals, and then prioritizing those goals accordingly. The pace of change is accelerating exponentially, and you need a future-proof platform or you will be left behind. I don't think you'll be left behind. I know you'll be left behind, and we are betting on it in a big way from a future-proof perspective. So you really need to be thinking about that. And I'm talking obviously about the website when I'm talking about that, but I think that's true in a lot of things that you're doing in your business. And you need to be thinking like that in a lot of different ways in your business. Obviously, most topical today, you need to be thinking about your website like that. You need to bring continuous improvement practices into your website. Continuous improvement is something that's been talked about for years and years and years, but it hasn't really been done on the web as well as it could have been. It is with Fortune 500 companies. It is with companies like Amazon, eBay, these major Booking.com, Expedia. They do continuous improvement. A lot of us, because of budget, don't do continuous improvement. And you need to be doing that. And I think that's one of the ways to do that affordably. You can do that by thinking through future-proof and thinking through what that looks like, because that in and of itself is a big step towards the direction of continuous improvement. And there's a huge opportunity there to be embracing continuous improvement practices into your website. If you're not already doing those in your business, I highly encourage you to do that. But you can study that, you can Google that, and learn tons of information about continuous improvement practices as part of that. So that's a few key takeaways, some direct action steps that we want to make available for you. I know there's going to be tons of thoughts rolling around in your mind and questions. We've got 2 opportunities for you today. One is to request a free 21-point website inspection. We'll do a 21-point website inspection, give you the results of that to help you start thinking about how do I need to set my website up for the future. The other part of that is if you're interested, you can request a demo of our future-proof cloud website solution. Both of those opportunities are available for you today. Our poll today is actually a multiple choice. So if you want both of those things, you can select both of them, or you can select no thanks. Not interested in either of them. I think we got this locked down. Totally understand that too. Absolutely. Say no thanks. No big deal there. Our goal there would be to get everybody to vote in the poll. So if we can get everybody to vote in the poll who is tuned in today, that'll help us keep things moving and we can get to Q&A. So yes, I'd like a 21-point website inspection. Yes, I'd like a demo of Q4 Launch's future-proof cloud website solution. Or no thanks. I think I'm good on all of it. Right now, we've only got about 50% of our attendees voted. So if you haven't voted yet, please help me out and just vote so we can keep this moving forward and get to the Q&A part of our conversation today. Just select 1 or 2 or probably not all 3 of those, but just select something so we can keep things moving forward. That would be awesome. Looks like we're at about 70%, which is where we typically need to be to get GoToMeeting to let us move things forward. So awesome. Thank you for those of you who voted. If you didn't vote, my guess is you're not even at your computer because it's not hard to vote. If you have a question, pop that in the chat panel. I've seen that light blinking a couple times, so we're going to get to those questions here in just a minute. Let me go ahead and pull those up. But if you have a question and you haven't put it in the chat panel, please do that now so we can get those questions answered. Awesome. Here we go. Well, it looks like we had a couple messages about audio being lost, but it's back on about a minute later. So if anybody lost audio, apologize for that. Hopefully everybody got that back on. Okay. Next question here from Carol. What will happen to sites like Airbnb, HomeAway, etc., that are taking over for owners and property managers? Interesting question, Carol. I wouldn't say that they're taking over. I think the sites like that that are really positioning themselves as a marketplace. So we've talked a lot on past webinars about the shift from a directory to a marketplace. And that's why Expedia bought HomeAway and VRBO and all the sites that make it up, was to take a directory and turn it into a marketplace. It takes Craigslist and turn it into Amazon. I don't think those are going anywhere. I was just in St. Louis last week at a leadership institute. And one of the other guys that was there was a private equity guy from Manhattan. And their company is heavily focused on investing serious amounts of capital into marketplace style websites. They're invested into Uber, they're invested into Spotify, they're investing a lot of money into these type of sites because a lot of people see that as the future of the web. And that's part of what we're talking about here within our content. Of our webinar today is that things will be more marketplace driven. They will be more e-commerce, book now, buy it now style driven. So I don't think those sites will go away. I think they will continue to shift to being more and more of a marketplace and less of whatever they were before being a marketplace. So I think we're going to see that change on those sites and see it continuing to move more and more that direction and looking for ways that they can continue to provide more and more value to their customer, aka finding ways they can monetize their customers more and more. So kind of a long-winded answer there to your question, but hopefully that helps. Question from Nancy. What are your thoughts on video rather than photos? Great question, Nancy. I wouldn't say it's a rather than question. We love video. There's actually some cool stuff we're going to be announcing here in the next couple of weeks about some things we're doing with video as a company. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can email me and I can get you kind of a sneak peek of that. But we're investing in video as well as a company, and some really cool ideas we're bringing to reality, ideas I've been bouncing around as the founder of our company for 2 or 3 years that we're just really bringing to reality. So there's some cool things there. I love video. I don't think it necessarily replaces photos. But I don't think you should. I don't think you should focus solely on that. And that was my main point with that slide number 2 about you need to be thinking about content of your site overall. Content includes video, includes photos, it includes copy, it includes buttons. I mean, everything that makes up your site is content of that site. So you need to be thinking about all of that and understanding how that impacts the guest decision on making a booking or not. Lots of questions rolling in. Appreciate those. Hopefully we'll get a chance to get to all those questions here from Dinah or Dina. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. What are the most important design features in a website that assist in one click or prompts you to book? Oh, that's a big question. We can't do one click, right? I mean, Amazon's got a patent on that, so we can't necessarily do that. And there's not like one thing. We're going to teach a whole webinar on this in the future. I actually have started work on the content, the top 10 tips for increasing conversion. We've taught one in the past called 5 Secrets to Website Conversion. So there's a lot of information there. I think understanding the flow that someone is going through on your website is a really important part of that. Understanding how they navigate through your website, understanding where guests are entering your website, and understanding how is that guest different than a guest who entered somewhere else. How is a guest who entered on my blog different than one who entered on my homepage? And designing a conversion path for those people. So I think understanding how people are flowing through your website, why people are leaving your website, and designing a conversion path around that is really what you need to be thinking about as you're thinking about conversion rate optimization, which is really the question that you asked. So hopefully that was helpful. It's a big question to answer in a time like this, but happy to connect with you one-on-one about that and go deeper into that. And if you want deeper, requesting the 21-point website inspection would be a great way to do that, or the demo, because it would set you up with a time we could connect on that independently. Question here from Carol: why have a website if they are advertising your properties? I think it's a follow-up question to the Airbnb and HomeAway thing. The question about why have a website if they're advertising: if you don't have very many properties, you might not need a website. But one of the hottest topics in the industry right now is how do I reduce my dependency on online travel agents? HomeAway, Airbnb, Expedia, Booking.com are online travel agents, and they charge a percentage fee of your booking to deliver that booking. And the more control they have over your bookings, the more they own your customer, the more they can charge you as a percentage. Airbnb has been talked about a lot as the lowest from a percentage perspective, but I don't think that will last. I have a lot of friends that list the properties on Airbnb and various things, and I tell them, like, just don't get comfortable with that 3% booking, and make sure your margins are good enough. If they go to 10, 15, 20%, that you can accept that and stay profitable and not go bankrupt or lose your shirt. Because Expedia has already proven that hotels will pay 20, 25% of a booking as a booking fee. So I would say that's why you need to have your own website and do your own marketing, so you can drive direct bookings to insulate yourself from that. I have a friend that manages about a $15 million hospitality business. They do about $15 million a year in bookings, and they get zero OTA business. Now, that was not something that happened overnight. That is a commitment to a long-term investment in brand and marketing in their destination, and they're very, very aggressive from a marketing perspective. But they're running a $15 million hospitality business with zero OTA business. So that's why you need to have your own website, your own marketing. Otherwise, you are a puppet of the OTAs, and if they raise your rates, you have nothing to do but pay them. Question from Bill: when we get bookings from Expedia, 99% are one-nighters. Is this normal? Bill, I would say that's very specific by demographic. I would say that's not normal in Charleston. I haven't studied that specific metric in various markets as far as average nights per stay by market, by booking source. Interesting data. It kind of makes me want to go study it. But I don't know the answer to that question for you specifically, Bill. I would say that's a great question for your Expedia rep, but I wouldn't say it's normal across the industry. I would say you're more likely to see that on a platform like Expedia than you are with direct bookings, for sure, but I wouldn't say that it's normal across the industry. A question, a couple thank yous. Thank you, appreciate that. Thanks for being here. A couple, can I do the 21-point website inspection? Yes, it's easiest, it's best if you voted in the poll to be able to do that. I can't reopen it to allow you to vote now because it won't let me do that, but so I'll make sure we follow up with you for those of you that commented yes in the chat box or in the question box about taking advantage of the 21-point website inspection. Question: what do you think having a video of the property on live time? I'm not sure that I completely understand that question. What do you think having a video of the property on live time? I'm not sure if you're asking about having like a live webcam feed, or not like a webcam feed, but like a live video feed that's constantly running of your property. If that's what you're asking about, like a live feed of that, I mean, if there's something there that people want to see, I think sure. I have a friend that owns a bar out on Isle of Palms, and they have a webcam set up that just shows the beach. It shows they have sand volleyball courts, and then they have the beach right there, so people can see surf conditions. They can see if anybody's on the sand volleyball court. They can see what's going on at the bar. Like, they can see all that, and customers then will make decisions on, do I want to come? How big is the surf? Is there anybody playing volleyball? Like, they'll make decisions about that based off that. So if there is some relevance to the live feed or something cool that's happening, that's awesome. I have another customer that has a hotel under construction right now, and they have a live feed of their construction. So at any point, their customers can go check that out. So it's kind of a marketing thing. So I think it definitely has a place. You just got to think about what role is it playing in your business and what's the purpose. to be able to answer, is it a good thing or not? But it's really inexpensive to set up. And we do see, some really high traffic around those things, people checking those out. I would just say if you have that and you do start getting good traffic to it, people checking it out for your destination or whatever, then start thinking about, okay, I've got all these people checking out my live feed. How can I turn this into a conversion opportunity? Presumably you have prospective customers coming to check that live feed out. How can you turn that into a conversion opportunity? So hopefully that answered your question. I think that's it. I think that we got to all the questions in the chat panel there today. If you have another one, feel free to drop that in. Otherwise, we will go ahead and wrap things up. For as much content as we had today, really happy we ended on time today. Thanks everybody for your attendance. Look forward to following up with you if you asked us to through our poll today. If you have any other questions, feel free to get a hold of me. My contact information is on the screen. If you have a question you didn't want to ask in the group, that's totally fine. I'd be happy to connect with you one-on-one to get your question answered. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great day as you are working towards making sure your website is set up for the future. Thanks, everybody.